The traffic light turned red. The Mafia boss leaned back in the back seat, half listening to his driver, until a small figure stepped into the crosswalk. A little girl, barely 8 years old. She was holding a baby boy, too tightly for someone so small. His head rested on her shoulder, his cries weak, exhausted. She didn't beg loudly. She didn't shout. She just stood there, eyes scanning every car, whispering the same words again and again. "Please, my brother is hungry." Most windows stayed closed. Some drivers looked away. Others shook their heads. Then she reached the black luxury car. The Mafia boss looked up. Something in her face made his chest tighten. The way she stood protectively in front of the baby. The way her hands trembled, but never let go. She didn't ask for money. She asked quietly, almost apologetically, "Do you have milk?" The light turned green. The driver's foot hovered over the gas, but the Mafia boss raised his hand. "Stop the car," he said, because in that moment, the most feared man in the city saw something he hadn't felt in years: helplessness, and a child forced to grow up too soon. "Stay with me until the end, because what he does for those 2 children next will break your heart and then heal it." Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Now let's get started. Vincent Torino had built his empire on fear. For 23 years, his name alone could silence a room. Men twice his size would look away when he walked past. Police officers pretended not to see him. Politicians answered his calls before their own mothers. But sitting in his bulletproof Mercedes, staring at this tiny girl holding an even tinier baby, Vincent felt something crack inside his chest. Something he'd buried so deep he thought it was gone forever. The girl couldn't have weighed more than 60 pounds. Her clothes hung loose on her small frame, faded and torn at the edges. Her shoes had holes that let rainwater seep through to her bare feet. But her grip on that baby was fierce, protective, unbreakable. "Boss?" His driver, Marcus, glanced in the rearview mirror. "The light's green. Traffic's building up behind us." Vincent ignored him. He rolled down the window. The little girl stepped closer. Up close, he could see the dark circles under her eyes, the way her lips were cracked from dehydration. The baby in her arms couldn't have been more than 6 months old, his face pale and gaunt. "What's your name?" Vincent asked softly. The girl hesitated. Street children learned early not to trust men in expensive cars. But desperation won over caution. "Sophia," she whispered. "And this is Miguel. He's my little brother." Vincent studied her face. There was something familiar about her features, something that tugged at memories he'd tried to forget. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her chin. "Where are your parents, Sophia?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "Gone. They're gone." The simple words hit Vincent like a punch to the gut. He'd heard those same words before, spoken in the same broken whisper. He'd spoken them himself 30 years ago, when he was barely older than Sophia. Behind them, car horns started honking. Marcus shifted nervously in the driver's seat. They were making themselves a target, sitting still in the middle of downtown traffic. Every second they stayed put was a second their enemies could use against them. But Vincent couldn't move. Not yet. "When did you last eat?" he asked. Sophia's stomach answered before she could, a loud rumble that made her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "Yesterday morning. A lady at the market gave us half a sandwich. We shared it." Vincent's jaw clenched. Yesterday morning. It was now Friday afternoon. This child had been caring for a baby for over a day without food. "And milk for Miguel?" Sophia's voice dropped to barely a whisper. 3 days ago. I've been giving him water, but he keeps crying. I don't know what else to do." 3 days. Vincent closed his eyes briefly. This baby was starving to death in the middle of a city where people threw away more food than Sophia had probably seen in weeks. "Boss," Marcus said urgently. "We need to move. Now." Vincent looked past Sophia to the cars behind them. Angry drivers leaning on their horns. A police officer walking toward them from the corner. In 5 minutes, this intersection would be swarming with cops, and Vincent couldn't afford that kind of attention. But he also couldn't drive away. Not from this. Sophia, he said, making a decision that would change everything. Get in the car. Her eyes went wide. Every instinct she'd developed living on the streets screamed danger. Strange men who offered rides were the reason other children disappeared and never came back. I won't hurt you, Vincent said, and for the first time in years, he meant every word. You and Miguel need food, real food, and I know where to get it. Sophia looked down at Miguel, who had stopped crying only because he was too weak to continue. His tiny chest rose and fell rapidly, labored breathing that meant he didn't have much time left. She made her choice. The car door opened, and Sophia climbed in, clutching Miguel to her chest. Marcus pulled away from the intersection, just as the police officer reached their previous position. The interior of the Mercedes was unlike anything Sophia had ever seen. Leather seats that were softer than any bed she'd slept in. Air conditioning that made her shiver after months under the scorching sun. A small refrigerator built into the side panel. Vincent opened the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of water. He handed it to Sophia, who drank greedily before remembering Miguel. She poured some into her cupped palm and let the baby suck the drops from her fingers. There's a pharmacy 2 blocks away, Vincent told Marcus. Stop there first. Boss, that's not exactly a secure location. I don't care about secure right now. Marcus had worked for Vincent for 8 years. He'd seen his boss order executions without blinking. He'd watched him negotiate million-dollar deals over dinner. But he'd never heard Vincent's voice sound like this. Soft, almost gentle. The pharmacy was small, crowded, normal. Vincent walked in like he owned the place, which, technically, he did. The owner, Mr. Chen, looked up from behind the counter, and his face went pale. Mr. Torino, how can I help you? Baby formula. The best you have. And bottles and diapers? Vincent paused, thinking. And children's vitamins. Mr. Chen scrambled to gather the items, his hands shaking slightly. Everyone in the neighborhood knew who Vincent was. They also knew that disappointing him came with consequences. Is there anything else? Mr. Chen asked, placing everything in a bag. Vincent looked out the window to where Sophia sat in the car, still holding Miguel, still protecting him. Milk, the kind children drink, and crackers, something gentle for a small stomach. Back in the car, Vincent mixed the formula while Sophia watched with wide eyes. Miguel perked up at the smell, his weak cries becoming more urgent. Here, Vincent said, offering Sophia the bottle. Feed him slowly. His stomach isn't used to being full. Sophia took the bottle with trembling hands. Miguel latched on immediately, drinking desperately. For the first time in days, his cries stopped. Vincent watched them, and something loosened in his chest, something that had been wound tight for decades. Where do you sleep? He asked softly. Sophia didn't look up from Miguel. Wherever we can. Sometimes the church lets us stay in the doorway, sometimes under the bridge. Vincent had slept under that same bridge when he was 12. He remembered the cold concrete, the way the rain would find every gap in whatever cardboard he'd managed to scavenge. He remembered the hunger that felt like claws tearing at his insides. He also remembered the man who'd found him there, the man who'd given him food, shelter, and eventually, a family. The man who'd taught him that sometimes the most important thing you could do was reach out your hand to someone who was drowning. That man had saved Vincent's life. And now, looking at Sophia and Miguel, Vincent understood why. Not tonight, he said quietly. Tonight, you're coming home with me. With me. Sophia stared at Vincent with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Home. The word felt foreign on her tongue. She hadn't had a home in over 2 years. Not since the night everything changed. I don't understand, she whispered, holding Miguel closer. Why would you help us? You don't even know us. Vincent studied her face, seeing himself at that age. The same wariness, the same bone-deep exhaustion that came from carrying responsibilities no child should bear. Because someone helped me once, he said simply. When I was about your age, sleeping in places I shouldn't have been sleeping, eating scraps I found in dumpsters behind restaurants. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror, surprised. In all his years working for Vincent, his boss had never spoken about his past. Not to anyone. You lived on the streets, too? Sophia asked. For 3 years, until a man named Antonio found me trying to steal bread from his bakery. Instead of calling the police, he gave me a job, a place to sleep, a chance. Vincent paused, remembering. Antonio Benedetti had been more than an employer. He'd been the father Vincent never had, the teacher who'd shown him that strength didn't always mean violence, that power could be used to protect instead of destroy. Antonio taught me many things, Vincent continued, but the most important lesson was this. When you have the power to change someone's life for the better, you do it. No questions asked. The car pulled through wrought iron gates into a circular driveway. Sophia gasped. The mansion before them was like something from a fairy tale. 3 stories of cream-colored stone, with ivy climbing the walls and flowers blooming in perfectly manicured gardens. This is where you live? She breathed. Vincent nodded. With too many empty rooms and not enough laughter. As they stepped out of the car, Sophia stumbled slightly. Days without proper food had left her weak, unsteady on her feet. Vincent caught her arm gently, stabilizing her. Easy, he said. When did you last sleep? Really sleep? Sophia thought about it. I don't remember. Maybe Tuesday. Miguel wakes up a lot during the night, and I have to make sure no one takes him while I'm sleeping. Vincent's chest tightened again. This child had been living in a constant state of vigilance, never allowing herself the luxury of true rest, because she was too busy protecting her brother. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman in her 50s appeared, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, her face kind but concerned. Mr. Torino, she said, then stopped when she saw Sophia and Miguel. Oh my. Maria, Vincent said, we have guests. They'll be staying with us. Could you prepare the blue room? And perhaps some soup, something gentle for sensitive stomachs. Maria had been Vincent's housekeeper for 15 years. She'd seen him bring home business associates, politicians, even the occasional woman he was dating, but she'd never seen him bring home children, especially not children who looked like they'd been living rough. Of course, she said warmly, stepping aside to let them in. You poor dears. You must be exhausted. The interior of the mansion was even more overwhelming than the exterior. Marble floors reflected light from crystal chandeliers. Oil paintings in ornate frames lined the walls. A curved staircase swept up to the 2nd floor, like something from a movie. Sophia stood frozen in the entrance hall, afraid to move. Everything was so clean, so beautiful. She looked down at her dirty clothes, her mud-caked shoes, and felt shame burn in her cheeks. I'll make everything dirty, she whispered. Vincent knelt down to her eye level. Sophia, look at me. Things can be cleaned. Things can be replaced. But you can't be replaced. Miguel can't be replaced. You're what matters here, not the furniture. Miguel had fallen asleep in Sophia's arms, finally content with a full belly. His breathing was deeper now, more regular. The formula had worked quickly to ease his hunger. Let's get you both cleaned up, Vincent said. Then food, then sleep. Real sleep in a real bed, with no one to worry about. As they climbed the staircase, Sophia's legs shook with each step. Vincent noticed and slowed his pace, staying close in case she needed support. The blue room has its own bathroom, he explained. Hot water, soap, clean towels. Maria will bring you some clothes that might fit better. They reached the 2nd floor, and Vincent opened a door to reveal a bedroom larger than any space Sophia had ever called home. A queen-sized bed dominated the room, covered in soft blue linens. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating a sitting area with plush chairs and a small table. This is all for us? Sophia asked in disbelief. All for you. And Sophia, there's something else you need to understand. The door doesn't lock from the outside. You're not prisoners here. If you want to leave, you can leave. But I hope you'll stay, at least until you're both stronger. Sophia set Miguel down on the bed, where he continued sleeping peacefully. She looked around the room, then back at Vincent. Why are you really doing this? she asked. Men like you don't help people like us. Not without wanting something back. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and looked out at the gardens below. 32 years ago I made a promise to a dying man. Antonio, the one who saved me. He was sick, cancer, and he knew he didn't have long. On his last day, he called me to his bedside. Vincent's voice grew softer, more distant. He said, "Vincent, I'm not proud of everything you've become. Some of the choices you've made would break my heart if I had to watch them. But I know there's still good in you. Promise me something. Promise me that when you find a child who needs what I gave you, you'll give it to them. Not because it's profitable, not because it serves your interests, but because it's right." Sophia listened intently, Miguel's steady breathing the only other sound in the room. I told him I would, but as the years went by, I convinced myself that promise didn't matter anymore, that the world was too hard, too cruel for that kind of kindness, that helping people was a weakness I couldn't afford. Vincent turned back to face Sophia. "Then I saw you today, standing in that intersection, protecting Miguel with everything you had, and I remembered what it felt like to be small and scared and completely alone. I remembered Antonio's promise, and I realized that some debts can only be paid forward." Sophia studied his face, searching for lies, for hidden motives, but all she saw was a man carrying his own pain, his own memories of being lost. "What happens when you get tired of us?" she asked quietly. "When we become inconvenient?" "That won't happen." "How do you know?" Vincent knelt down again, meeting her eyes directly. "Because I see myself in you, Sophia. The way you protect Miguel, the way you sacrifice everything for someone you love. That's not something I'll ever get tired of. That's something worth protecting." A soft knock interrupted them. Maria appeared in the doorway with an armload of clothes. "I brought some things that might work," she said gently. "There's a robe for now, and I can wash your clothes while you rest." Vincent stood up. "I'll leave you to get settled. Maria will show you where everything is. If you need anything at all, just ask." As he reached the door, Sophia called out softly, "Vincent?" He turned back. "Thank you. I don't understand it, but thank you." Vincent smiled, and for a moment, the hardness in his face completely disappeared. "Get some rest, little one. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next." What comes next. Vincent closed the door softly behind him, but instead of walking away, he stood in the hallway for several minutes. Through the door, he could hear the quiet sounds of Sophia moving around the room, the gentle splash of water running in the bathroom. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in months. "Dr. Martinez? This is Vincent Torino. I need you to come to my house tonight. Bring everything you need to examine 2 children. A baby, maybe 6 months old, and a girl around 8. They've been living on the streets." The doctor's voice was cautious but professional. "Are they injured? Malnourished? Dehydrated? The baby hasn't had proper nutrition in days. I need to know if there's any permanent damage." "I'll be there within the hour." Vincent hung up and walked downstairs to his study. The room was lined with books he'd never read, awards he'd never earned honestly, and photographs of himself with politicians who feared him more than they respected him. He sat behind his mahogany desk and opened a laptop. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard before he began typing. Private investigators, child welfare, missing persons. If Sophia and Miguel had family out there looking for them, he needed to know. If they'd been taken from someone who loved them, he'd reunite them, no matter how much it cost him personally. But if they were truly alone, truly abandoned, then he would become what they needed. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Boss, the Castellano meeting is in 2 hours. Should I prepare the car?" Vincent stared at the message. The Castellano deal was worth $12 million. 6 months of negotiations had led to this moment. Missing it would mean losing not just money, but face in front of his competitors. He typed back, "Cancel it. Reschedule for next week. Boss, this is the Castellano deal. They won't wait. Then they can find someone else to do business with." Vincent turned off his phone and walked to the kitchen, where Maria was preparing a pot of chicken soup. The smell filled the house with warmth he hadn't felt in years. "How do they seem?" Maria asked without looking up from her stirring. "Scared. Exhausted. That little girl has been carrying the weight of the world." Maria nodded knowingly. She'd raised 4 children of her own before coming to work for Vincent. She understood the special kind of exhaustion that came from caring for someone smaller than yourself. "The boy Miguel, he's very thin. Too thin. But children are resilient. With proper care, good food, he'll recover quickly." Vincent leaned against the counter, watching Maria work. She moved with the efficiency of someone who'd spent decades caring for others. "Maria, I need to ask you something. If these children stay here, really stay, things will change. This house will change. Are you prepared for that?" Maria smiled. The first genuine smile Vincent had seen in his home for months. "Mr. Torino, this house has been waiting for children for 15 years. It's too big, too quiet, too cold. Children will make it what it was meant to be." Upstairs, Sophia had managed to give Miguel a bath in the enormous marble tub. The baby seemed to enjoy the warm water, kicking his tiny legs and making small cooing sounds. For the first time in weeks, he looked truly content. She dried him carefully with the softest towels she'd ever touched, then wrapped him in a clean white onesie that Maria had provided. It was still too big for his small frame, but it was clean and warm and smelled like lavender. Sophia looked at herself in the mirror. The shower had washed away layers of dirt and grime, revealing skin that was paler than she remembered. Her hair, clean for the first time in months, fell in dark waves around her shoulders. But it was her eyes that shocked her most. They looked older than her 8 years, marked by experiences no child should have. She wondered if Vincent saw that when he looked at her, if that's why he'd stopped his car. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. "Sophia, it's Maria. I brought some soup, and there's a doctor here who'd like to check on you and Miguel." Sophia's heart jumped. "A doctor? Are we in trouble? Are you calling the police?" "No, sweetheart. Mr. Torino just wants to make sure you're both healthy. The doctor is a friend. He won't ask questions you don't want to answer." Sophia opened the door cautiously. Maria stood in the hallway with a tray of soup and crackers, her face kind and reassuring. "He's downstairs in the living room. Very gentle man. He has grandchildren of his own." They walked downstairs together, Sophia carrying Miguel, who was now alert and looking around with curious eyes. The living room was as elegant as the rest of the house, but Dr. Martinez had managed to make it feel welcoming. His medical bag sat open on the coffee table, and he smiled warmly when they entered. "You must be Sophia," he said, "and this handsome fellow must be Miguel." Dr. Martinez was in his 60s, with silver hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He moved slowly, deliberately, never reaching for the children without warning them first. "I'd like to check how you're both doing, if that's okay with you. Just to make sure you're healing properly from your time outside." Sophia nodded reluctantly. She was used to being suspicious of adults, but something about Dr. Martinez felt safe. The examination was thorough but gentle. Miguel first, checking his weight, his reflexes, listening to his heart and lungs. The doctor frowned slightly at the baby's low weight, but seemed pleased with his overall condition. "He's dehydrated and underweight," he told Sophia, "but nothing that can't be fixed with proper nutrition and care. He's a strong little boy." Then it was Sophia's turn. Dr. Martinez checked her eyes, her throat, listened to her breathing. He examined several cuts and bruises on her arms and legs, remnants from sleeping in rough places. "Sophia," he said gently, "can you tell me about these marks on your wrists?" Sophia looked down at the faint bruises circling her wrists, already fading to yellow-green. She'd hoped they weren't visible anymore. "Sometimes people tried to take Miguel," she said quietly. "I had to hold on tight." Dr. Martinez's expression darkened for a moment, then returned to its gentle calm. "You did the right thing protecting him. You're very brave." After the examination, Dr. Martinez spoke privately with Vincent in the hallway. "Physically, they'll both recover completely. The girl shows signs of chronic stress and sleep deprivation, but nothing permanent. The baby is malnourished, but responding well to proper feeding. Vincent nodded, relieved. But Vincent, the doctor continued, that girl has been through trauma. The way she holds herself, the way she watches every door and window, she's been in survival mode for a long time. She'll need patience. She'll need to learn that she can trust again. What do you recommend? Time, consistency, and probably therapy when she's ready. But most importantly, she needs to know that she's safe, really safe, not just for tonight, but permanently. That evening, Vincent sat in the blue room while Sophia fed Miguel his bottle. The baby's appetite was returning, and he drank eagerly, his tiny hands grasping at Sophia's fingers. Sophia, I need to ask you some questions, and I want you to know that you don't have to answer anything you're not comfortable with. Sophia looked up from Miguel, her guard immediately rising. Do you remember your last name? Your parents' names? Anything that might help me find out if you have family looking for you? Sophia was quiet for a long time, rocking Miguel gently as he finished his bottle. Rodriguez, she finally said. Sophia and Miguel Rodriguez. Our mama's name was Carmen. Papa was Diego. Vincent wrote the names down carefully. Do you know what happened to them? Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. Mama got sick. Real sick. She couldn't work anymore, couldn't pay rent. We got kicked out of our apartment. She paused, gathering strength to continue. Papa tried to find work, but nobody wanted to hire someone with 2 kids and a sick wife. He started drinking. Then he started getting angry. Real angry. Vincent felt his jaw clench, but he kept his expression neutral. One night, Papa hit Mama, hard. She fell down and didn't get up for a long time. When she finally did, she was different, confused. She couldn't remember things. Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. Papa said it was our fault, that we were too expensive, too much trouble. The next morning, he was gone. Just gone. He left a note saying he couldn't take care of us anymore. Vincent's hands clenched into fists, but Sophia didn't notice. She was lost in the memory. Mama tried to take care of us after that, but she kept getting more confused. Sometimes she'd forget to feed Miguel. Sometimes she'd forget we were her children. Then one morning, I woke up and she was cold. Real cold. The room was silent except for Miguel's soft breathing. I didn't know what to do. I was scared they'd take Miguel away from me if anyone found out Mama was dead. So I took him and we left. That was 6 weeks ago. Vincent felt something break inside his chest. 6 weeks. This child had been caring for a baby on the streets for 6 weeks, all while grieving her mother and processing abandonment by her father. Sophia, you did everything right. Everything. You kept Miguel alive. You kept him safe. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Sophia looked up at him with those 2 old eyes. Are you going to try to find Papa? Vincent was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Do you want me to find him? Sophia held Miguel closer. No, he didn't want us when things got hard. We don't need him now. Vincent nodded. Then I won't look for him. But Sophia, I need you to understand something. What your father did, leaving you and Miguel, that wasn't your fault. You weren't too expensive or too much trouble. He was just a man who couldn't handle his responsibilities. Sophia studied Vincent's face. Is that why you help us? Because you think we're your responsibility now? Vincent considered the question seriously. No, I help you because I want to. Because you deserve help. Because every child deserves to feel safe and loved and protected. Not because I have to, but because I choose to. Miguel had fallen asleep in Sophia's arms again. She looked down at his peaceful face, then back at Vincent. Can I ask you something now? Anything. Are you really a bad man? People on the street, they whisper about you. They say you hurt people. Vincent had been expecting this question, but it still hit him like a physical blow. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that the world isn't divided into good people and bad people, but into people who choose kindness and people who choose cruelty? I've made choices that I'm not proud of, he said finally. I've done things that hurt people, but Sophia, I promise you this. I will never hurt you or Miguel, and I will never let anyone else hurt you either. Sophia nodded slowly, as if weighing his words against everything she'd learned about trusting adults. Okay, she said simply. I believe you. And in that moment, Vincent realized that those two words meant more to him than any business deal he'd ever closed, any territory he'd ever claimed, any enemy he'd ever defeated. This little girl, who had every reason to distrust the world, had chosen to believe in him. He wouldn't let her down, to let her down. That night, Vincent made 3 phone calls that would change everything. The first was to his lawyer. I need you to start adoption proceedings. Immediately. 2 children, Sofia and Miguel Rodriguez. I want full legal custody. The lawyer's voice was careful, professional. Mr. Torino, adoption cases can take months, sometimes years. There are background checks, home studies, court appearances. Then make it happen faster. Whatever it costs, whatever strings need to be pulled. I want those children protected legally. No one can take them from me. The second call was to his accountant. I want you to set up trust funds. 2 of them. Full college tuition, medical expenses, everything they'll ever need. I want them taken care of, even if something happens to me. How much are we talking about, Mr. Torino? Vincent looked up at the ceiling, thinking about Sophia's hollow eyes, Miguel's weak cries. Whatever it takes. Start with 5 million each. The third call was the hardest. He dialed a number he'd sworn never to use again. Father Martinez? This is Vincent Torino. I know we haven't spoken since Antonio's funeral, but I need your help. The priest's voice was wary, but not unkind. Vincent, it's been a long time. I have 2 children in my care. Orphans. They need more than I can give them. They need someone who can teach them about goodness, about faith, about things I've forgotten how to believe in. Sometimes the most powerful thing in the world isn't fear or money or control. It's the choice to see yourself in someone else's pain and decide that this time you won't walk away. Vincent found his redemption not in boardrooms or back alleys, but in the trust of an 8-year-old girl who had every reason to give up on humanity. Sofia and Miguel didn't just find a home that day. They saved a man who thought he was beyond saving, and that's the real miracle. When we choose love over indifference, when we stop our cars instead of driving past, we don't just change someone else's life. We remember what it means to be human. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember that kindness still exists. Like and subscribe for more stories that remind us why hope matters.